Okay, so first of all, apologize for the glare in the background. The time of day, there's nothing I can do about it. That's just what's going to happen. But because I'm recording this at 1:30 in the afternoon on October 1st, 2024. And, if I ever get rich enough to make a studio for Mile Y, I'll do it. But for now, I certainly don't. But I needed to record something yesterday, and I didn't have time to do it yesterday. And didn't have time to read the article yesterday. John Stanton made some comments. The owner of the Seattle Mariners, the chairman of the Seattle Mariners, to be exact, but the owner made some comments, and I'm going to react to them. I'm not going to read the whole article because, and I very much encourage, and I will put a link to the article in the comments section. It's very important that we support local journalism, especially for the Seattle Mariners. There's exactly one independent source of the Seattle Mariners right now, and I'm not counting all the YouTube channels. I'm certainly not counting mine. There's one legitimate source for covering the team. I plead with you to please support their work. Subscribe to the Seattle Times if you can afford it. If you can't, I totally understand. Support their work in other ways. But I plead with you because Ryan Divish and Adam Jude do terrific work. In particular, Divish. Jude does a great job as well. But Divish has been doing this for a long time. And while I hate him, he's one of the best beat writers in the sport. Gosh, I hate him. But yeah. Okay. So the reason I wanted to do this, and I'm just going to take some snippets and react to it. I'm pretty ticked off. And I will say I'm not as ticked off because as I was last year after the 54% comments, which some of you may remember, I didn't even see the 54% comment until after I recorded my video. There's a bunch of things he said before that really chapped my you-know-what. But in another way, I'm even more mad because of the fact that they didn't even have the intestinal fortitude to have a real end-of-season press conference. You had Jerry DiPoto do a interview on Saturday, and you have John Stanton do a little something at the end of the year. It's just cowardly. And it's cowardly because they know they're not going to like the answer. So, and it's cowardly. It's also something where they're probably saying in the heads, well, we can't win. We can't win. There's no way for us. Win baseball games, and you can win press conferences. Pretty simple. All right, so the article starts, and again, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read some snippets with Chairman John Stanton promising that the payroll would increase for 2025. They note that it did increase from 2024, but marginally, 145 million estimated from 140 in 2023. It's also worth pointing out, as Divish and Jude note, that the payroll going up, as Stanton says it will, is just kind of natural because of how many players the Mariners have that are eligible for arbitration and due for raises. Julio gets a fairly significant raise. Mitch Garver gets a raise just off the top of my head. And then guys who are eligible for arbitration for the first time, like Big Dumper and Logan Gilbert. So that is saying the payroll will go up. Of course it is. Unless you do a massive overhaul of the roster, it's not that big of a deal to even say that the payroll will go up. It's certainly better than hearing the payroll will go down, but it's not necessarily the great thing that I think some people wanted to hear from that. But then there's this. So they write, how much will that influence the club's offseason spending? That's not entirely clear either in regards to the payroll going up. What is clear, the Mariners do not intend to dive into the deep end of the free agent pool this winter, which means they won't pursue the likes of Juan Soto or Pete Alonso or Alex Bregman or any other high-priced veteran. Not because they can't afford it, Stanton has explained, but because as a matter of baseball economics, the Mariners don't want to pay top dollar for aging players. You can't own a team. You can't. You can own a small market baseball club. The Mariners aren't a small market baseball club. And even the guys who own, and I'm not excusing it, I'm just saying this cannot be your attitude for a market like Seattle. It shouldn't be a market. It shouldn't be a attitude to take for any market. Acting like Seattle is this small. Then the next thing, the scars of the Robinson Cano contract 11 years later still feel like a fresh wound for the Mariners. What scars? By almost every metric outside of wins and losses, and let's be honest, wins and losses matter the most. Robinson Cano was absolutely a success. They were able to get a very nice return in a Robinson Cano trade. Robinson Cano was very good for the Seattle Mariners. So if you're going to have any scar, any fresh wound from Robinson Cano, it's that you can't go halfway. You can't just sign Robinson Cano and Nelson Cruz and say, we're done. We've done enough. We spent our money. No, you got to keep going. And they didn't keep going enough. And that's why you wasted for a very good amount of time, the best second baseman in baseball, the best designated hitter in baseball. You wasted it. Not because you signed those guys, it's because you signed those guys and then didn't keep going. That's the scar. The scar is that you wasted Robinson Cano. Not that Robinson's Cano contract kept them from doing anything. And anybody who says otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about and has Stockholm Syndrome. And Stockholm Syndrome is something that's very common for sports fans, where we just take the word of ownership. And it's hard because they don't open their books. But it's blatantly obvious that they lie about this stuff. It's a lie that the Mariners can't sign more guys. And it's a lie that it's baseball economics that you can't sign free agent bats. It's not some golden strategy. It's not wanting to spend money. And especially what it is, it's the absolute fear of having to spend money on guys who won't be as good at the end of their contracts. And you know what? That does happen a lot. It's supposed to be worth it. If you're an owner of a major league team, it's supposed to be worth it. Also, just the very idea of talking about Juan Soto as this aging veteran. And I know that he doesn't specifically name him, but the full quote here, we've got the resources to be able to do the things we need to do to put a good team on the field. Now, this is from an interview in June. We've never been focused on free agent bats, those kind of big deal free agent bats, as a matter of strategy, not because of anything having to do with resources. Number one, absolute lie. Because what's the strategy? What's the strategy? Are you saying that those guys are going to become so bad they don't belong on major league rosters? If that's what you're saying, okay. Strategy. No, but what you're saying is, and somehow this doesn't have to do with resources, is that you don't want to pay a large sum of money. I'm sorry. Very poorly said there. You don't want to pay those big bucks to guys in their later 30s. And I just vehemently disagree. Number one, not this doesn't get talked about nearly enough. You sign a guy for $20 million in 2024, $20 million in 2030 is around 15. $20 million in 2035 is around 12 to 10. Barring something happening with the sport that has never happened, that's how that works. And number two, and we'll get into it. We'll get into number two in just a sec. This quote. I mean, I my objective for us is to have a sustainable product on the field, meaning that a team that is consistently competing every year. Great. We've grown payroll each of the last 3 years. Maybe not as much as you would like us to, but we all deal with constraints, right? Are you freaking kidding me? I mean, I don't even know what to say. I mean, technically, he's right. He doesn't have, he's not the richest billionaire in the world, the richest person in the world, but he is a billionaire. And hearing someone talk about constraints with that kind of wealth and who makes that kind of profit with this team is just infuriating. I think we've got a terrific team and we built it the right way. Maybe. And the most important things to me is it's sustainable over time. Is that what's important to you guys? Is it important for you guys to go for your favorite team to go 85 and 77 a whole bunch? 88 and 74, the occasional 90 and 72? Is that what's important to you? Or is winning a World Series important? I'm not asking John Stanton. I don't give a crap about his answer. I know what his answer. It's not. I would like to think it's what Jerry DiPoto wants. I know it's what the baseball players want, the players on the team. I know that's what they want. Is that what's important to you? Because honestly, if that's what's important to you, I don't know if I want to do this. Not just record. I don't know if I want to be a Seattle Mariner fan. If that's what's important. This could just be me. I will take 3 years of 55 and 107 for a World Series championship to hang that banner. But I'm not the one who has to deal with the profits or lack thereof that don't come with 55 and 107 seasons. So let's just be brutally honest. It's not because he wants to give you a nice product. It's because he knows there's a chance he can lose a lot of money. Or rather, there's a chance he won't make as much money as he was. And I just wish he'd be honest with it. This is the closest he's been to being honest with it. He's almost saying the quiet part out loud. But just say that you own the Seattle Mariners because it's a very profitable business. Because then I could just give up. Go find something else to do. Go sleep like my dog's doing right now. Division them, Division Jude, excuse me. Note about the taking the step back after their spending peaked in 2018 at 162 million. They note the cost-cutting moves of not bringing back Teoscar, selling a Eugenio Suarez, selling and then some Jared Kelnick. And then they note this. Given the Mariners' ongoing uncertainty surrounding Root Sports, the regional sports network, player payroll is not expected to make a sizable increase for 2025. I can't see the books, right? None of us can. If that's what's really keeping you from spending the money to be a World Series contender in a top 12 market in the United States, you shouldn't own a baseball team. And what you should be doing is selling some of your stock to put the necessary funds in, because I promise you, John Stanton, if you did that, you would make so much more money than whatever the heck it is that you're making now. This is not good. And look, I'm watching teams with lower payrolls play today than the Seattle Mariners. And I'm not putting all of the blame on John Stanton, but in a way I am, because I talked about this on Molly Watt Monday. Sure, yes, you do have to give blame to Jerry DePoto and to Scott Service and some to Dan Wilson and the players. The guy who thinks this good enough, that this is good enough for the Seattle Mariners, is John Stanton. So it does ultimately lie on his feet. And it's just extremely disappointing that the Mariners have an ownership group that is just uninterested in taking that next step. I don't think it's the worst ownership group in sports. John Fisher exists. There's some other really bad ones out there too. But given the market size and given the fact that we have waited so long and asked not to be patient, but now we're getting this, which is by definition asking us to be patient. I don't know. It's just so sad to see. It's interesting looking at in the article, they give a list of the guaranteed salaries. 90.4 million right now in guaranteed salaries. And then the players eligible for arbitration, looks like they have Randy Rosarina for around 10 to 12 million. Logan Gilbert for 7 to 8. Couts with 5. Josh Rojas with 4. I think he might be a non-tender candidate. And George Kirby with 4. So that's around 30 million bucks. So that's $120 million to a really good core. And that's not including guys Matt Brash, Luke Raley, Santos, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, Colin Snyder, and Leo Rivas, who we'll see. They're not even eligible for arbitration yet. And you're going to, and as Divish and Jude point out, very likely they're going to decline the $12 million option on Jorge Polanco. You're perfectly set up with that core to go after the major free agent bats. The major free agent bats, the Juan Sotos, the Pete Alonsos, the Christian Walkers, just to name a few. And to know they're not going to explore that, knowing that they have this starting rotation, knowing that they have one of the most exciting young players in baseball in Julio Rodriguez, knowing they have a top 5 catcher, maybe even the best catcher in baseball in Cal Raleigh. To know that they are just okay with what they have. And it's good, but it's not great. I just want great. We deserve great. Look at how many people went to those games last year. And maybe that's the problem. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. I really don't know if this video was any good or not, but I had to get my thoughts out there. It's embarrassing. That's the word that keeps popping in my head. It's embarrassing. And I want 2025 to be so much better. But based on those comments and based on not only just those comments, but their actions over the last few years, there's just no reason to think 2025 is going to be all that much better.